I was still just around, just starving, living off of like gas station microwave burritos and stuff, recording local bands, and happened to cross paths with a band called Smash Mouth. I'd recorded some demos for another band that knew them, and that went well, and so they were interested in recording with me, and so they came in and we recorded 6 songs. But then a year later, they had shopped those and they had a little bit of interest, but nobody would quite bite on it yet. And so they came back and said, we want to just finish a record ourselves. We recorded another 6 songs to complete an album's worth of stuff. And I mean, that record happened so fast. It was like the first batch of songs was done in, a few days, maybe 3 or 4 days. And then the second batch was done, another 10 days or something. So it was a total of about 2 weeks of recording to make their first album. Tracked, mixed, everything. And one of the songs was Walking on the Sun. And once we had a mastered thing, them and their manager and their lawyer started shopping it around, and people just freaked out for Walking on the Sun. It was totally unstoppable. It was just one of those times we were just starving, and we just needed stuff to record. And he was like, well, I know this band, and they're trying to record some demos, we can have them come in. And so it was Third Eye Blind. We scheduled a weekend for them to come in and record some stuff, and I was just going to sort of take off and do other things. And on Monday, when I came in, Steven was outside the studio looking sort of defeated, and it seemed like for whatever reason things had fallen apart, and so I was going to try and jump in and help finish things, but I wanted to check with my buddy Jason to make sure it'd be cool for me to step in, and so I pulled him aside. I was like, Jason, Steven's kind of bummed out, he doesn't think like things are going to get done, and I'm thinking maybe it'll be helpful for me to get involved if you're cool. He's like, cool, great, I'm leaving, you take over. And he just bailed. And so I stepped in and ended up finishing those demos. And ultimately, like in those demos, we recorded Losing a Whole Year, and that recording ended up going on the record. And so ultimately they got a record deal, and he convinced the record company to let him oversee recording the record, essentially produce the record, but he wanted me to engineer it. That one took so long, and the record got finished right at the end of like Christmas time, '96. And so then that week of recording Smash Mouth happened in April of '97. And so while they were setting up to release that record, I recorded the Smash Mouth record and got that done in a week. And so both of those records ended up coming out about the same time. And there was a point where the songs Semi-Charmed Life and Walking on the Sun were competing against each other for #1 for radio airplay. And I wasn't expecting any of that. And that changed everything in my life overnight, just like that. It was a total, complete, paradigm change for me. I was definitely a little naive about the whole thing because that beginning was so fortuitous that I really had this very naive sense that it's like, oh, this is easy. I record something and it sells millions of records, And that's definitely not the way it works, It's a very complicated, combination of influences, much of which you have very little control over. You can make something that sounds beautiful and it's amazing, but if the right team isn't there to really push it through and support it, records do not sell themselves. Really, ultimately, the way this stuff works is in the industry, like even now, the only reason I ever get a phone call to work on a project is because my name is on something that somebody has seen. And so it really does change everything, and like that moment of transition is, 90% luck, because I happened to cross paths with those bands, that were just the right thing at the right time, and a door gets opened, and so the last 10% is having the skills and experience to be able to walk through that door. But there's tons of people out there that are insanely gifted and I'm sure, far better at doing this than I am, that never have one of those doors open for them, you know. So it really is all about, you know, right place, right time, and when that door, you know, is standing open in front of you, you just got to be able to walk through it.